Hi, I'm Mitchell Smith, Director of Penn State School of International Affairs. And I'm here with a guest at the school for today, Professor Gary Hoover, who is Executive Director of the Murphy Institute and a Professor of Economics at Tulane University. Welcome, Professor Hoover.
Thank you. Thank you.
We're going to talk about his forthcoming book, Ladder or Lottery, which is coming out from University of California Press later this year. And the book is about the economics of the social contract. So it's especially timely. So I want to start by asking about the impetus for the book. What made you begin to write this book?
Well, like any scientist, I observed a phenomenon in the world in that there was this belief that individuals are wherever they are up and down the social ladder because they want to be there. And you might have heard it expressed that people in poverty are making a choice. They're choosing to be in poverty, or people who are rich have made choices which have allowed them to ascend up the ladder. And so my investigation is that true? Is it possible that there might be people at different rungs of the economic ladder who are not there by choice, right? They might be there because of a failing of a social contract that assured them some type of mobility that never came. And that's why the title, is it a ladder where all people have to do is climb, or is it a lottery to where you could put in the same inputs as I, and you just might be unlucky? That was the impetus that brought about the book.
So let's start with the concept of the social contract. Maybe you could say a little bit more about exactly how you define that.
Right. Well, it's different. There's a legal definition of the social contract. There's actually one in philosophy. There are several ways to think about the social contract. The way that I'm thinking about the social contract is an action-based social contract where society tells an individual, if you engage in certain activities, the outcome of that will be a movement up the social ladder. And if you don't, then that means you never engaged in one or many of these society-endorsed activities. And I could name a couple. So the most commonly heard one is actually education. Look, it really doesn't matter where you start out on the economic ladder. If you engage in education being a key, that's your ladder. This is how you climb up the economic ladder, by getting yourself educated. If you don't, then you should expect to be lower on the economic ladder because you didn't engage in this activity. And so the question would be, what if I did and I didn't climb? But that's for a bit later. There are actually several social contracts. Another social contract might be entrepreneurship. What do we have here in our American lexicon? Phrases like only in America, or an American success story, where we buy into the mythos that if you build a better mousetrap, you will be the next Bill Gates, a guy working in his garage who becomes a multi-billionaire. That's the social contract. Be an entrepreneur. Build something. Create something. You're going to be benefited as a result of that, and you're going to ascend up the ladder. So the social contract isn't one ladder. It's actually many. And I bet you right now, you're even thinking of some of yourself, right? So people think as they do. They say, okay, what's another social contract that we might believe in it that exists, in that I engage in that activity, society tells me that engaging in that activity will move me up the social ladder.
So implicitly, your point, it sounds like, is that social contract is often violated, or maybe typically violated. What happens when that occurs?
Well, let's think about the analogy of the ladder, in that, why is the book titled The Lottery or Ladder, is that people could say, look, I tried to climb, but like with any ladder, maybe the rungs aren't safe. Maybe the rungs are too far apart. So the ladder does exist, but there are too many people occupying a higher rung, and so there's no room for you on the next level up. So there are all types of things in a ladder that, even if the ladder exists, it isn't working as it was intended. And so people say, I don't deserve to be here. I don't want to be here. I find that I am trying to climb, but I cannot climb because there is some problem, not with me per se, but with that ladder. And when enough people coalesce around an idea, there can be pushback. And they say, hey, I might be amongst my peers here, but I'm not with them. I am trying to climb. They're not trying to climb. And someone at the top of the ladder just looks at a bunch of people down below and casts them into one group and says, well, all of these folks are of the same. And that's when the protests arise. It's when people say, look, you above, you need to distinguish between those of us who are here and are trying to climb up and those of us who are here and not trying to climb. That's what causes the protests, when people want to be distinguished from their non-climbing or non-attempting to climb peers.
So this is interesting. So violations of the social contract can lead to a coalescence of a reaction against the social contract that says it's not fulfilled, it's dishonest, it's deceptive. So there's protest. Does protest typically lead to some sort of rewriting of the social contract, or more often than not, does it not lead to that?
It can. We can see examples where it could. Perhaps there's some altering, and in some cases that it doesn't. For instance, let's talk a little bit about something that's going on now, and we'll see how it turns out. Student loan forgiveness. So one of the things that we talked about earlier was education as a ladder. You educate yourself and you'll be better off. And so the way that you would think about that as it relates to higher ed is that, look, you're making an investment in yourself. Sure, higher ed is expensive, but the returns that you get from getting yourself a college degree, a master's degree, will be enough to pay back whatever it was you spent on college and more. So individuals say, the violation didn't occur with me breaching my contract. The violation occurred before, when society breached its social contract, when you promised me economic outcome that was going to be higher after college than it was before college, and that never occurred. I actually end up now being at the same income level, but now I'm saddled with significant debt. Will that lead to any change in the social contract? We saw inklings that there were going to be change through student debt forgiveness. We saw some of that in 2023. We saw some of that in 2024. The question is whether or not that's going to be lasting going forward. And so to answer your question, sometimes violations of the social contract do lead to changes in the social contract. And we saw that beginning, but whether or not it's, in this case particularly, whether or not there's going to be a fulfillment of it is yet to be seen. With changing political regimes, given that this is a long-standing problem, it's going to take a long-run investment to see it through. Maybe we will.
Well, it seems like in a lot of ways the reaction has gone in a different direction, which is in response to the notion of a violation of the social contract regarding higher education, as you've described it, is that it's sort of an assault on higher education, that higher education is not delivering. It's too expensive. It's not delivering the benefits that it claims to benefit. And we're seeing that narrative has sort of taken the upper hand, as opposed to, there's been some backlash against the idea of student loan forgiveness.
Absolutely. Well, in addition to that, what we've seen is that since 2015, one of the things we know is that the number of people between the ages of 18 and 24 who are attending colleges and universities are down by about 5 million. Why is that the case? Because they're making a cost-benefit analysis. They're saying, look, college has failed to deliver for me, and therefore I'm not going to invest in it. That makes the assault on colleges and universities much easier to make, because then we can justify it as saying there's no longer a demand for the services being rendered. However, as we become an increasingly technologically driven society, the question is going to be, where do those people who don't attend college, where are they going to end up? Are they going to end up in the tech sector? Are they going to end up in technology-driven manufacturing? That's a question to be asked, and that's going to be a very difficult question, especially if they then decide that they want to come back and re-engage colleges and universities, even if we were to bring the cost down so that it's no longer a violation. Will there be the colleges and universities there for them to attend?
So let me ask a question sort of a different direction. That is, I could imagine, and we've talked about some failures or violations of the social contract. Are there examples you can cite of instances in which the social contract is in fact fulfilled?
Not totally fulfilled, but where it almost works to its intended purposes. One could think about the military. One could think about military service. One could think about the military as a vehicle up the economic and social ladder. Up the social ladder is just really easy to see. It's no accident that we have a Veterans Day, right? It's no accident that we have a Memorial Day. There's no accident that we offer discounts at many retail outlets for military and veterans. So society puts a lot of stock on veterans. So from a society standpoint, clearly this is a social contract that's working. If you want to attain higher status in society, the military is a way to do so. However, also climbing up the economic ladder, we see that the military is actually quite beneficial. How does one get access to a home loan through the VA? That's not open to everyone. That's open to military veterans. And if we believe that the home is the greatest store of individual and household wealth, giving these veterans access to home ownership is an absolute win and moving them up the economic ladder. In addition to that, think about the opportunity to go to college. We just talked about colleges and universities being more expensive. Military service also ensures or helps to ensure access to the GI Bill to pay for those ever-increasing college and university costs. That's also an absolute win as the military has a social contract that works. Finally, fast-tracking to naturalization and citizenship through the military. Also a fast track. One wants to become a citizen or gets naturalized. Easiest and most efficient way to do it is to move through the military service. So as an example of here you are at one rung of the economic ladder. Here you are engaging in some activity, and here you are moving up the economic ladder. The military is a very good example of almost one that works, and both for society and for economics.
So your book, in the concluding sections, begins to talk about some emerging areas where there are potential tensions in the social contract. AI is one of those areas. Could you talk about the emerging tensions you see in the area?
Sure. It piggybacks on what we said earlier. Think about this. We're going to need, by the year 2030, we're going to need about 8 million more college-educated individuals. As I mentioned earlier, we're already down about 5 million college-educated individuals. So we're heading in opposite directions. There's going to end up being some type of tension that are going to be caused as we're going to have more jobs requiring that. How do we know that there are going to be more jobs requiring that? Because AI can replace many, many jobs. So the whole point of the social contract says you do this and then you'll be rewarded with that. It did not say you do this and then you'll be rewarded until I can find an algorithm that can replace you and then you'll no longer be necessary. That's a violation of the social contract when it says your services are no longer necessary. But if we are to believe in the jobs that will be created by AI, what we do know is that writing code and creating AI algorithms is going to have to be done by somebody. It's not going to be done by those who have rejected the other social contract of education. What that's going to do is those two worlds are going to collide, where we're going to have more AI necessary, less people able to engage AI, but believing that the social contract has failed them. Where does this come to a head? Somewhere soon, somewhere down the road, we're going to have a problem.
And among other things, this is going to further exacerbate inequality in the United States.
Absolutely.
How does the social contract work there in the area of the income distribution? Because it seems like the U.S. system in particular has a very high tolerance for economic inequality.
Exactly, because the two go hand in hand. Why not have a very, very high tolerance for income inequality if there is a road for anybody who wants to be higher up? So in essence, what we're saying is it really doesn't matter where you start on the ladder. You want to climb, you can climb. So who cares if there is a lot of inequality? And some would argue that this inequality is actually a good thing. It shows that entrepreneurs and first movers and risk takers are getting out front. They're bringing new products and services to the market. And as such, when these products and services become successful, they should receive the lion's share of the benefit. And they move up quickly and ascend higher up the economic ladder. That's exacerbating inequality, but that's a good thing. That shows that innovators are moving products to market. However, they would go on to say that the same individuals who have created these products are going to disseminate them throughout society, and everybody will have a chance to benefit from them. And then they too themselves can move up. So inequality is okay if there is also mobility. However, is that really true? Is that a true ladder when we know that those who are born into poverty have a greater than 90% possibility that they're going to die in poverty? So is the American mythos about mobility as it relates to inequality true? If it's not, and I would argue that it's not, then this as a social contract, that we can have inequality as long as we have mobility, that's also a violation, because you can't say that you have the two, inequality and mobility, without the mobility part, so that people are cast into what we might call a permanent underclass.
Mm-hmm. But doesn't this narrative suggest that, in a way, the one of the functions of the social contract is social? That is, to justify or to lead individuals to embrace the existing order, including high levels of inequality, even when they are on the lower end of that economic distribution?
Absolutely. But, with any contract that is not explicitly written out, remember, because it's not a written out contract, right, there has to be a great deal of faith, right? And so I don't have to actually have you see any evidence that this thing actually works. You don't have to see any evidence that mobility actually exists, as long as I can get you to believe it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the part that sells.
So when can we expect the book to come out?
We're going to look for a July through maybe as late as September of 2025 date at wherever you get your books and other fine reading materials.
Great. Well, I encourage those who've seen this video to go ahead and get the book and read it. And thank you very much, Professor Hoover.
Thank you for having me in. Thanks.